Now we'd like to hear from Father Tom Hemm. Father Tom is the pastor of St. Henry Cluster, just down the road, a cluster of 5 parishes here in southern Mercer County. Before that, some of you may know, he was the pastor at Saints Peter and Paul in Ottawa, Ohio, where he survived a very memorable flood, as I recall. Even before that, as Father Barry alluded to, Father Tom ministered for years in our Chilean vicariate. He's still remembered there as a warm and caring pastor and a very strong advocate for justice. So, Father Tom will tell us how this native of Piqua, Ohio, came to feel at home in Santiago, Chile. Tom.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I am from Piqua, Ohio, just about 40 miles from here. I started out about 8,000 miles away in Chile. Then I came to Putnam County, which was about 70 miles from home, and now I'm just over the river. When Barry told his story, I was reminded when he talked about Father Paul Holman. I was born when actually Dad and Mom were married, and he had to go back and finish the war in the Pacific, which we're remembering these days, the end of the war. And Mom was pregnant, and Father Ambrose Langrick was the associate pastor there at St. Boniface in Piqua. In those days, we had so many priests, we didn't know where to locate them all. And he baptized me. It was in my mother and dad's wedding. And I grew up with slides of pictures of Chile, and it kind of brought about a sense of, I'm going to be a missionary one day. And then, as Barry explained, the opportunity came, and I went to Chile. What I wanted to mention to you is it was Barry explained well the culture shock returning, or not returning, but in waking up in Latin America. But I have to say, I think the greater cultural shock was 26 years later, waking up in the United States. I woke up first in Orlando for a couple of months, and then I was up in Putnam County. And in some ways, I didn't recognize my own culture, and I think that is the beauty in a way of some kind of exposure to another culture. You begin to see the world in a different way. One of the things that I appreciated coming back is the global nature of our parishes, even here in the United States, and I think that's something that is being enhanced even more in the third wave that Mike talked about, and that our communities, our parishes, seem to be more sensitive to the other side of the world, let's say. I'm serving now in a parish, St. Henry, that is a third decade already of visiting Haiti. I don't know how many hundreds of parishioners from St. Henry have visited Haiti. Nearly 30 years from Burkittsville, St. Bernard Parish, were the same numbers of people, and still annually visiting Jamaica, an orphanage there. And many of you, at least from the region here, know how privileged we were for having the presence of Father Benedict Mugabe from Tanzania, who was associate with me in St. Henry for 6 years. So we are a very intercultural experience, and I think that's important for the global world. One thing that I became aware of is the fact that our presence in the Archdiocese, as Mike has recognized, has been a stimulus to the missionary spirit. You know, our missionaries, Father Ambrose actually my former pastor went to Latin America, to Chile, among the first. He actually presented me to the bishop for ordination. I was ordained down there. But that missionary presence here has affected this archdiocese. And I wouldn't say in contrast, but in association and partnership. And this is, if not the best, one of the best missionary offices, diocesan offices in the United States. It's very active. I think the Archdiocese of Cincinnati had a welcoming spirit. I don't know if some of you know, of course, our ancestors crossed the big lake, the Atlantic, in boat, and often down with the what do you call it, down in the steerage. And Archbishop Purcell, or Bishop Purcell, when he started hearing stories about these missionaries, and up here in the northern part, do you know, that speak Low German and High German, and an Irish bishop, he began to understand here that we were pretty, well, like Hicks up here. We didn't, and he was really disappointed that he had invited Brunner, and then that the sisters developed seriously, until he realized what it was to open this archdiocese, to open up to another culture. Now today we're looking to Colombia or Mexico, Vietnam, for priests to accompany this wave of immigrants. And I think we have to be part of that generosity, that hospitality goes on and on. We find ourselves in a different culture. Just a final comment. I think I'm part of the second wave, and it's sort of settling into the sand as the third wave is happening. There are fewer and fewer of us who you might say are career. I was there for 26 years. Can't match Father Don Team, who was there 55 years. But many of you have the chance for a short-term visit. And I think my final word would be, we really, and this is seconding what the others have said, we have to be humble. We're stepping on someone else's terrain. And I know the American tendency, I had it when I first go there, right away you say, oh, we need a sewer over here, we need this over there, we got to do this, we got to do that. And we don't stop and see the marvelous people in a whole different context, what they're doing. We have to, it's hard not for Americans not to fix it. And yet what we need to do, I think it's going to be helpful for ourselves to contemplate more fully what's around us, and learn to relate and accept people as they are. Not that there isn't a time for sharing from our knowledge, but first of all, it's like when Moses came to that bush, he said, take your shoes off, you're on holy ground.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tom, for highlighting some of those cultural and global issues that go along with any sort of mission work.